Welcome back, my friends, to another story analysis, kind of. Oh my god. Oh, damn. Oh! You're kidding, dude. You're kidding? Oh. Alright. We should be good. So today we're talking about The Witcher. Specifically, the books compared to the series. Because I think there's a very important discussion to be had that is prevalent, not often enough. You know, if you look at The Witcher's IMDb page, for example, you'll see an 8.2 score, I believe, or something around there. And to be frank, it should be far lower. You may be wondering, well, Oscar, why spread such negativity? What's not to like about the amazing series? You have Henry Cavill, the beautiful, beautiful, elegant man in the role as Geralt the Witcher. The problem is that this story right here is 20 frickin' times better. Many times better. Incomparable, I tell you, incomparable. The issue is not only one of adaptation, but also the fact that it was so easy for them. Had they just been at least a little bit competent in following the story, or at least not changing what already worked within the books. Because except for the fact that Henry Cavill is a beautiful, amazing Geralt, everything else is wrong. They're just different characters. None of them behave in any way similar to what they would in the books. The plot doesn't make sense at all. The story makes no sense. It's much less logical, much less charming, particularly, than the books are. But I do not want to be a negative man. So I'm gonna start out by mentioning one thing that I really do like about the TV series. Geralt is, let me put it this way. Henry Cavill is a god. Henry Cavill was born and created on this earth to be the joy of men and women alike, to be the paradise. This is an amazing man. Look at that jawline. Look at that beautiful, beautiful, half kind of disheveled beard. Look at his beautiful blue eyes, his chin. Ooh, his chin. Henry Cavill. I have a crush on that man. And he does make a decent Geralt, at least if you remove the script. And that's wherein the main problem of the Witcher series lies. As with most series that are bad, the script. The script is your Bible. The script is your father. It's your mother. If you don't have a script, you don't have a life. Anyways. So let's get into the story. The first episode of season 1 actually starts out all right. We start with Geralt in Blaviken, one of the short stories that we read initially in The Last Wish. And schematically, it follows overall the same story. You have the story with Renfri and the wizard, and you know, he has to choose between two evils.
You have to choose the lesser evil.
Fuck. But the devil's in the details. So the first episode is split between Geralt's story and Ciri's story, switching back and forth between those two characters. Ciri, who we, by the way, don't meet until halfway through the second book. So why is she in here in the first episode of season 1, you wonder? And we never get an answer for that. So not only is the entirety of Ciri's story within the first season completely made up by the writers of the show, it takes time away from the beautiful story that needed a lot more time to breathe with Geralt. And all of the stories that are based on the short stories with Geralt in the first season are either almost completely changed from their book counterparts or cut down until they're but a skeleton of their original form. And that's probably one of my biggest issues with season 1, except for the fact that none of the characters act like the characters, none of the characters seem believable, none of the characters have the same charm. That doesn't matter, that's a small detail. Let's just put that to the side for now. Give the show the benefit of that. Okay, they're different characters, kind of. Don't really get the same characterization. The story with how he meets Yennefer is completely different in season 1 as compared to the books. as well as the story is basically made like budget Game of Thrones. And 2 of these 3 storylines are completely made up by the TV series. In the books, we follow only Geralt, we get to know Geralt much more, we experience many other side stories that really expand on the beauty that is Geralt, and we meet the rest of the main cast in due time. But what does the show do? No, they want to be Game of Thrones. They want to switch between 3 different stories, make up their own stuff. But I do have to give them credit on one thing. They avoid the issue of inconsistency because they boil down Geralt's story so much that it is on the level of the rest of the 2 other storylines. Another thing with the storylines. None of them takes place at the same time. We have Yennefer, Ciri, and Geralt's story that takes place in 20 years difference between each of the storylines. You as a viewer don't really begin to realize this until more than halfway through season 1, and you're like still scrambling to find out, wait, how much the time difference is? What the hell? I don't... And that's another issue that they just artificially create. There's nothing like this in the books. There's only Geralt. We want more Geralt. We need Geralt. Only Geralt. From my point of view, the perfect season 1 would have just been the cleanly adapted book 1, following Geralt, meeting different characters in different episodes. It would have been pretty episodic, but it would have been well written, and we would have met Ciri like once. And then we meet her again in season 2 more permanently. We meet Yennefer at different intervals, different times. We have Dandelion as a constant. Dandelion's called Jaskier in the series. And you would have avoided all this time-skipping fuzz. You wouldn't have had to make up 2 storylines that make no sense, that are bad, that don't even have any correlation to what we're told about their backstories really. In the books, we're told that Yennefer is a hunchback, yeah, that's basically it. And that she has had a relationship with Istrid at some point. Istrid, who's also, by the way, completely different in the series. There's no one who is not completely different in the series, really. Especially Yennefer. Yennefer, they really butchered Yennefer. I am sorry. The actor, fine actress, shitty script. Yennefer is presented at multiple points in this story as incompetent, and looked down on by other wizards, and all this weird stuff that just does not at all fit in with the books. And yeah, I mean, overall, season 1 is a mess. The only real reason this series got as popular as it was because it was almost already a famous IP, and the effects were great. Henry Cavill is great, he's cool, he's edgy. So even if you haven't read the story or knew nothing about it beforehand, you still get this sort of guilty pleasure sort of, it's still pretty good, I guess, if I don't pay any attention to the quality of the story. But do not forget, if you like this video, remember to like it because it helps me out. I'm a small... that came out wrong. I'm a small YouTuber, okay? I'm a small YouTuber. So like, and I will appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about season 2. Season 2 is, okay, if you imagine that season 1, you visit a restaurant, and it's like the restaurant is the worst of Domino's. They serve rotten food consistently. They're ghosts, they're dead people, they're served consistent rotten food, rats on it, spoiled meat, the worst sort of stuff, old milk. And season 1 is you visit that restaurant and you have a small snack, a little appetizer, right? And then season 2 is the full menu. So when I watched the first episode of season 2, when it first initially aired, I was like, okay, maybe they're rectifying this a little bit more faithful to the books, right? Boy, was I wrong. So there's this character called Eskel, right? Eskel is a fine man, a witcher that we meet in season 2, as well as a witcher that we meet in the books. That's, let's just say, he's entirely different to what he's like in the books. He is not only very, very not charming, very unlikable, he also dies. He dies like quickly, very early on, in episode 3 or something. It's not quite recent in my mind, but around there. And he turns into a tree. Eskel turns into a tree. Yeah. And Eskel, for those of you who haven't read the books, is a character that becomes a pretty large player later on. And I was like, I mean, if the point of the Witcher series was to make me shocked, it achieved that, that's for sure. I was like, But then afterwards I began crying. My life was over. And then, of course, there is the entire Yennefer storyline where she loses her powers somehow because she wielded fire. That's got nothing to do with what happens in the books. Yeah, people say don't wield fire because it's it's not good and stuff like that. It's unpredictable, but you don't lose your powers because of it. It makes no sense. I was like, what? And then the story changes in its entirety towards the end of the season. It doesn't resemble anything from the books at all. It just changes the entire story. It's like one of those what-if episodes from Marvel. It's like, imagine you have the Marvel movies. The Witcher books are the Marvel movies, right? And then, you're a happy man, right? Because the Marvel movies, famous and amazing as they are finally going to be adapted into movies. Maybe I chose the wrong analogy here. But instead of adapting the actual Marvel movies, the new movies that are made are like the what-if episodes. The books go in this direction, sweetly build up, slow and stuff like that. And then season 1 kind of followed, but really strayed a bit. We kind of follow in a bumpy track. And then season 2, they're like, fuck this. We can't stand this anymore. Let's just veer in the other direction entirely. And that saddens me because these writers aren't competent. The characters are like cardboard cutouts of their book versions. And no matter how much I love Henry Cavill, that beautiful man, the Geralt of the TV show does not hold a candle to the books. If you've seen those compilations of Geralt saying, you know what I mean.
Doesn't rhyme. All good predictions rhyme.
And I must admit, the voice is a little overdone. It sounds like Cavill is straining a little bit too much. I mean, I think there's a good middle ground there somewhere. Still a darker, more gritty voice, but not so much that it sounds obviously made and fabricated. But I still love Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is my god. Oh, yes. Man of Steel, he is Man of Steel. Bum of Steel. I mean, I could watch Henry Cavill all day. And then, of course, you have the entirety relationship with Ciri and the interpersonal connections with Ciri, Yennefer, and Geralt. That also becomes an entirely different thing because the characters are different, and Ciri is 8 years older, really, in the show than she is in the books at this point. In the books, when we first meet Ciri, and throughout the entirety of what is season 1 and 2 time-wise comparatively to the books, she's 12. Ciri's supposed to be 12. She's a young girl and she acts in the story, in the books, as a 12-year-old girl, and it just creates an entirely different character, a completely different dynamic between Geralt and Ciri that is much more father-daughter, and that dynamic is pretty hard to find in the series because Ciri, the actor that plays Ciri, is so much older and made and written to be older in the series, and it just kind of ruins that dynamic that is so amazing and beautiful in the books. And then as a result of that, that kind of changes the entire core of the story. I mean, the core of the books is the characters. Plot and story has never really been Andrzej Sapkowski's strong suit. It's decent, right? But it's nothing like the characters. This is a character-based story, which then completely ruins it when you change the characters in their entirety. But anyway, that's enough of my rant. Go read the books, they're amazing. The TV series is decent if you haven't read the books. If you read them or watch them as a different thing, then they're alright, I guess. Moral of the story is, they shouldn't be called The Witcher. It should be some random fantasy series, generic fantasy story inspired by Game of Thrones. Bam, put that label on. I'm happy, I'm satisfied. If you want The Witcher, go read the books.